great to see you tonight. I am thrilled to be here. We were really pleased to be able to get Josh on, because as we go through tonight, Josh is doing some super interesting work. And I think along with some of the other folks that are doing wire wrapping, he's really pushing the edge in terms of the evolution of that art form. And John, you actually found Josh, didn't you find him? I mean, I know you brought him to our attention internally.
Yeah, well, I constantly am paying attention to what's going on all the different groups on Facebook and looking at Instagram and other places and looking for people that are showing really extraordinary talent and getting them onto our show to share their knowledge with all of the people that want to learn more, which is each of you.
Well, and one of the things I want to say that, as we think about the different speakers, like we had last week, we had Justin here. We've had a variety of you. Some of you right here, have been on also as guest speakers. That it is sharing of that knowledge and that wisdom that can take years off of people being able to really achieve their dreams in the gemstone cutting and I'll call glass and gemstone cutting and polishing arts. And so that's really, as we think about these webinars, we're working to build a comprehensive library of expertise that people can go in and reference for years to say, well, how is that done? Because if you think about that, there's some places to get that, but it's usually one particular art form. And so we're really aiming to be able to bring a variety in and allow it to be mixed up. And I think a little bit about Richard Britschke, where Richie was blending. If you remember Richard, he did a webinar that he was making gemstone sculptures of hummingbirds and that, but they were also integrating weaving into that as well. So bringing in different forms. And that's something that as I saw Josh's work, I'm like, I can see so many places that can connect to. And John, before we came live, you were talking a little bit about the differences of styles of wire wrapping, like how it's evolved.
If you look back and I think time frame is probably in the 80s when wire wrapping kind of went from and everybody will remember these, and people are still making them, the gem trees, and when the gem trees started, they were like really rustic and really simple, and now the gem trees are starting to go the same transition. So I picked this picture on the left off of Etsy. It's more of what I would call the older style of wire wrap. It has its appeal. It's kind of rustic. You can imagine a guy hiking up to the top of Half Dome wearing that. And then what I would call the evolution of wire wrapping. You look at pieces that Josh is making, or and I'm zoning the name, but
what's the guy's name that we just talked about, Josh?
Rika? Oh wait, no. Was it Tyler Thomas? I know so many people.
No.
John just ripped
it. It'll come to me later. But anyway, you look at this style of wire wrap. It's taken a huge evolution, and now the skill of wire wrapping has gotten really, really refined into a whole bunch of details and stylistic opportunities that now can be expanded upon. And what I was saying, as we were talking earlier, is I don't think this evolution is done. I think it's just begun, where people are able to look at this and see even more possibilities for what they can create, and they can shape it around,
you can take that down, Joanna.
They can shape it around a polished stone. They can shape it around a raw crystal. They can shape it around a faceted stone. They can take and put a combination of found items and gemstones, or any of the above.
Or just using just wire
that nobody's thought of yet, that somebody's going to think of. But what it provides is really, really great palette of imaginative combinations that can be put together. What's running underneath that, which is what Josh is bringing to us in my morning, your evening, is a lot of the technique and the skill for each of you to learn to be able to start to master, so you can create pieces that will be impressive for people, that you'll love, and that will expand your ability to create amazing art.
Well, and we're beginning to see a hybrid between what you think about as silversmithing and wire wrapping. Like there's a hybrid, like you're beginning to see this blend of bringing in different technique. And that's where innovation happens. Innovation always happens on the edges. It's never going to happen in the middle mainstream. It'll happen on the edge. And at first people will be like, I don't like that. Or they'll ignore it at first. Oh, yeah. Then they'll be like, I don't like it. Then they hate it. And then they're like, yeah, I kind of admire that. That's cool. Like that innovation takes that curve. It always goes from gets ignored, gets, people, say it's stupid, to people don't like it, to they hate it, to then they end up admiring it. It's just, that's the nature. Steve Jobs, Apple did that whole cycle. I mean, this is a cycle that happens, and it's just part of how innovation happens in a culture. And it's not unique to America. It's like any culture, those kinds of things happen. I just have a question. Who on the, on the chat, if you are currently wire wrapping as one of your main forms of doing work, put yes in the chat, just so we know who's in the chat and who we're speaking to here. Okay, we got some wire wrappers here. Tad, Theodore. Okay, so Theodore isn't, but Theodore may want. And Theodore, you got probably some good rock that you could be using for that. Ed, yep, Grant. So Lori's a beginner there. Celeste. So yeah, a lot of I can see you have a number of you have been doing some wire wrapping. Who would say that they really want to do it, but they don't know anything about it? Like you're kind of curious, but you don't know. In the chat on that, put yes, just so it's simple. Yes, Bond M, Steve, Ed's curious. Excellent. So Josh, there's a good group of folks here that are be like, how do I do this? And I think one of the things you're going to see is you're going to see how Josh will take it and he's breaking it down in these videos. So I want to start off with a video, and then I want to learn a little bit about your background, Josh, because I think your story will really help other people. But before we do that, Joanna, roll that video. It's about a 2-minute long video. We put a whole lot of Josh's work together. I want you to see the range and the work. You'll notice a certain style that he brings through that, but why don't you roll that video? That is totally badass. Like the stuff
that's
there
great.
that you're doing, Josh, is awesome. So talk about your story. Like, how did you get started in this? What was the inspiration? When was it?
It was 2012 or 2013. I can't exactly remember. I'm gonna say it was February 2013. But I had a friend who, pardon me, I had a friend who had a handmade necklace that one of his friends made for him, and then she passed, and it became a really important piece to him. And then he started taking care of himself and gaining weight, and he needed it extended so that he could wear it still.
Yeah.
And he asked me if I could, because I've always been kind of artsy and crafty and stuff. And I told him to go ahead and buy this stuff and just see. And then I never stopped. It just never stopped.
Yeah. Yep. So 13 years, so almost like 9 years you've been doing this.
Yeah.
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 Well, and it struck me like your work ranges from like fine jewelry. And I know a lot of my staff's like, how can I get that? That's good. Because I know that's going to be the conversation coming out of this. But also, we'll get to that. Connie's got some good questions we'll get to. But so you've evolved. Did you evolve from small form to bigger form? Because you're doing sculptures. Was the evolution?
It definitely was. I wanted to, like, I've always wanted to do something sculptural, but I never really, I don't know, I just thought I could. I didn't really see a way to bridge that gap. I've always wanted to make like a big sculpture, like one of my wraps. But I didn't really know how to start. And then I finally decided, well, I guess I just got to start.
Yeah.
Then the first one came out of that.
Creativity always follows commitment. So, and then now you're doing this full time now. How long have you been doing this full time? And this is what you're paying the bills with and all that?
A little over 2 years. Over 2 years.
And so I know COVID, you said, was an accelerator for you and your art.
I was managing a Maverick kitchen before all of COVID went down, and then I took that time to reassess and decided I would try it from home, and then it just finally stuck.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we have some really cool tools. Questions are coming on as well. So what I'm going to do is we'll start tackling questions after we run the first video. So as we go through the videos, put your questions in the chat. Just put them in. Our team is capturing them dutifully. It shows up on my other screen on a spreadsheet. So we'll make sure that we answer your questions. And the reason we do that is then when this goes up on YouTube, people won't see the chat on YouTube. So we'll be answering those questions live. So that really helps other people that are, need to use this as a reference library to go back, hear the questions, really be able to do that. So put your questions in the chat. And then as we roll through the video, as you're seeing things, just put the chat in. Chat it. My team will capture it. And then when we go to the break, we'll go bang through a whole bunch of questions. So I anticipate we're going to have a lot of question and answer throughout this. By the way, we have a lot of videos too.
Yeah. So yeah, on that, are we intending to do this as a 2-part continuing next week?
I think it's going to be 2-part. I don't think there's any way that we can make 1 part. Does that work for you, Josh?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I wanted to put that out there so everybody who's interested understands we're gonna definitely go 2 parts on this because there's a lot of video content.
Yeah. And just for show, and we'll be promoting a little bit later, Josh teaches people. So he does both classes and he does online teaching. And I also have some ideas of other places you might be able to teach and really make a big impact too. Because we do a fair amount with some other schools, one being the William Holland School of Lapidary Arts, and with good relationships there. And that's obviously you're volunteering your time. You don't get paid to do it, but it is a way of making a big impact too. So I'm sure there's some folks from the school that are on here too. Like there are a lot of them end up attending these. So I'll make the introductions in that, but it's partly
Very
do they have facilities and all that, but they're top flight. And there's also other schools too, other people as well. I bet you Don Loffer's on here as well. I mean, he has a school and he does, more of the lapidary gemstone cutting stuff out of Pittsburgh, but we're working also really to build a community of places that people can go to be able to learn. And you're in Pueblo area, so southwest of Denver, right? If I remember where Pueblo's at. So very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's roll the first video, Joanna.
Hey everybody. So before I get started, I'll show you the piece that we're gonna make. We're gonna make one just like this, but blue. It's gonna have 7 3mm zircon in one singular channel, one coil, and a focal stone with a really super simple bail. And here's the back side. So I went ahead and pre-cut all my wires. These are my 8 base wires. I had you guys cut 8 just because, as you're going through, it's going to take less time to add wires that are already cut and straightened out versus doing that on the fly. This is 18 gauge wire that I'm using here, 18 gauge half hard round. You can do this with any wire that you choose. I've seen people channel set with 20 gauge wire or with 24 gauge wire before. You just have to take your weaving wire down the size like proportionately to your base wire. So usually for me, it's 18 and 28. So that's what, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. That's a 5 size difference, 5 gauge size difference in between my base and my weaving. How long is the wire? I cut like 10 inches to a foot. You can kind of eyeball it for yourself as to how long you want to make your piece. So we're just going to start. I'm going to set my stuff off to the side here. If you've ever seen any of my videos before, you'll know that my work, I always start with channels. That's like the base for my everything. I'm just going to pick a midway point. I'm just going to pick a midway point here on 2 wires, and I'm just going to bend those directly in half. Give them a super good squish. And super, super, super pinch down. Now this is going to be the base of our channel. I had you cut like 8 feet of weaving wire. That was just a guesstimation. Everyone asking for measurements. I do not measure things. I eyeball everything. I've been doing it for almost 10 years now, and I never have measured anything. So it was something that I never picked up. You'll get a feel for how much you need. And if you're one of those people that are just starting out, something that I wish somebody had told me whenever I first started was do not be afraid to waste wire, because you will, and you won't learn unless you practice, and you won't be able to practice without wasting wire. So we're just going to take our 2 bent over wires here. Going to cross them over. I've got my weaving wire. I'm left-handed, so I'm going to hold my base wires with my right hand, and I'm going to weave with my left. This is 28 gauge half hard, or sorry, 28 gauge dead soft round is what I'm using here. All I did there was just make a nice little coil. It's, I don't know, maybe about 1/4 of an inch long. So all I'm doing here is I'm just giving a good solid base for my channel to start out. I don't want to give any opportunity for my base wires to slip. Those of you that are using square wire or even half round wire, you won't have to deal with this as much. What you will have to deal with, on the other hand, is more breakage than those of us using round wires because of the edges. I coiled the rest of my weaving wire just around the base, all the way to the tip there. Any excess, I either push back up into it, or I will go ahead and cut off because that drives me crazy on my palm. So after I flip my weave around here to where my open end that I'm going to be making the channel with is pointed away from me, I'm going to just give it another couple good coils, just a couple good twists. That's going to help you feel if your channel is super flat or if it's nice and compact and square like it needs to be. You're going to want your top wires and your bottom wires, all four, are going to be parallel to each other, no matter which way you turn it. A nice, just square channel, square coil. If your wires start to twist on you at the base here, don't let them twist any more than this, because that's going to put a lot of stress on your base wires as you work up your channel. I have a little crook in this one, and you want your channel wires to be as straight as you can get them. That's another reason why I went ahead and cut my wires early, was so that I could take that time and straighten everything out beforehand. I'll usually, because I eyeball everything, I will end up with a longer side than the other. I usually use my longer side, whatever ends up being longer, as my top. So I'm going to turn it upside down where the top is away from me. And I'm just going to grab these two smaller, shorter wires and give them a little split apart. I'm not lifting anything up, I'm just spreading out. And now we're going to do the same with the top, still holding it upside down. And now you're going to pull down just a little bit on these longer wires. And then you'll flip it over. And here we have a start for our channel. Hey, Jason. You just kind of want to get a feel for things. You can run your thumb across the top left and right wire there, and you can feel if one of them is higher up than the other. If it's not level, everything needs to be level. So you can just kind of squish it down. Do the same thing with the bottom. Make sure that everything is parallel. That's going to take the most, is figuring out how to get your wires to act right here. And here's where it starts to come together really quickly. So me being left-handed, I always, like I said, I hold my base wires in my right hand and I weave with my left. I don't know how other people do it, but this is just the most comfortable for me. For making channels or really any weave, I always start on the bottom left-hand wire. The bottom wire closest to me is what I start with. If you're holding it in your other hand, it's going to be more comfortable probably to start with that bottom right. But for me, bottom left. And I'm just going to go around once and twice. And so that's technically like a 1.5 turn because I'm not going around this other full time. So anytime I say 1.5, I'm just meaning 2 points of contact on that wire.
All right, so we're getting down to putting that first channel in. that then it kind of forms the basis there. I've got a bunch of questions here. I'm wondering, John, we're going to get a bunch of questions as he works through this.
Well, I think we should roll a second video and then take some questions.
That's what I'm thinking. So roll that next one, Joanna.
And then we're going to do a figure 8 weave. Short one is on the bottom. That's how I found it's most helpful for me to keep things separate, is to do it that way. I used to cut everything down and make it even because it bugged me. But anymore, it just helps to keep them separate. If you end up doing them on the top, that's just they're on the top. It's just going to be a way to help differentiate the levels for you. And then we're going to do that figure 8 weave, or that crisscross weave. It's literally, those of you who call it something else, I don't know if I'm calling it the technical name, but it's just around one wire and then under, and around the next wire and under. And it's a figure 8 with an extra loop. And we're just going to be doing that around all 4 wires. I rotate my weave as I go around. So now I'm doing that bottom right wire, and I'm just gently pulling it into place. I'm basically folding the wire over and then giving it a little tug right at the end. I'm going over that top right wire. And back over the top left. We're going to go down and through because we're doing that corset or that figure 8. Thank you, David. And back around. So you've gone one time around the entire weave. You're going to have 2 sets here because this is where we started and we ended. So always start and end on the same wire. This channel is the same thing that I use for all of my channels. Anything faceted, anything cabbed, it can be just barely modified. And you can do all kinds of natural stones too, like just random quartz points and stuff. You can channel set all that. But the measurement for me is just right up past where your stone is. So if I'm using a 3mm stone, if I was measuring, I would want it to be just past the top of my stone. If it's faceted, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's like the crown or the table, whatever it is, the very, very top of the stone, and then there's the side facets that go around, and then there's the actual like bottom part of the stone. Anchor the bottom right and figure 8 on the top 2. I don't know what anchor on the bottom right and figure 8 on the top 2. Figure 8 around the entire weave, the entire channel. That's the only weave that I'm using in this whole thing is just that figure 8 or that corset weave. And I'm just going around. Picture these 4 stones as cross sections of wire, like you're looking at it head on, like this.
You're actually going to talk about how you're going around those particular wires, because I can see where when you're teaching here, people are like, is it just one wire or are you going around all 4? And if I understand correctly, you started at one wire, you do double around, then you go to the next one double, go to the next one double, go to the next one double, and then you come back to the original one. So now you've done it basically, you're looping back to that original starting point, which is, I think, the point you're making there. So let's jump into some questions here, because what's going to happen is you're seeing right now the foundation that Josh is laying out for him doing that channel. We'll pick off some questions here, and then we'll get into you actually building that out. For the folks that are, like, we're getting into the details of how to do that. If you like this in the chat, put like, I like it, because This is the kind of stuff that's like nuances around doing it 2 versus 1. Like especially as you start building that, you don't want that to come apart. Is that fair to say, Josh? Like, it's part of your building strength into that structure.
Absolutely.
So Cornelia, I knew I could count on Cornelia to ask some good questions. So thank you. She says, Joshua, the piece you're wearing is so intricate. Are we going to get a close look at that? You want to put that
You
up?
absolutely can. Let me just, I normally tie an extendable necklace, but I didn't this time. And here it is.
That is awesome. That is friggin' sick. I like that. It's really,
Thank
really
you.
good. The details, it's like there's like a whole feeling to me. Like I was in France. My daughter and I were in France and we went to the Louvre Museum because we love going to the museums and looking at, we're just straight to the stones, jewelry. That's where we're going to go. And there's aspects of that really remind me of some, aspects that were Egyptian. I'm like, there's flavors. I think human beings have certain things they're interested to do. And these show up in our, different cultures. So yeah, there you go, Cornelia. You can get a good sense of that. Doug asked from YouTube, have you ever wire wrapped arrowheads?
Yes, I have. I don't like to do them as often anymore because they're just very brittle. But that's, the same as wrapping an opal or anything. You just have to give it the care that it deserves.
Yep. And I don't know if Stricklett's on here, Chris is on here, but Chris taught flint knapping and he does lots and lots of points. So this could be a great thing for him to integrate into his work. Cornelia, yes, he does it full time. I know you were asking about that. Ed had a question. Josh, do you have any one particular wire that you prefer working with? Perhaps one easier or more challenging than others?
So the my bread and butter is copper. Dead soft copper is the way to go for me. Not only is it the most cost effective, like affordable, it's the easiest to work with. You feel the least bad about wasting it. And it work hardens as you go. So like you can do a lot of stuff with copper. It doesn't just have to be like just a copper piece. Like this is copper. That I just oxidized. And then my least favorite wire, because I do have one, is brass.
Yeah.
It's springy and I hate it.
So it's very stiff. So
yes, but I will use it. This was one of the pieces that was in the slideshow. This is brass.
Yeah.
And that's jeweler's brass. So I think it's either half hard or hard.
Yeah. And I also noticed your glasses. You've wrapped your glasses.
I did.
That's friggin' cool. That is really, really cool.
I always
people will be like, man, I want some of them glasses. I'm like, Snoop Dogg would love some of those glasses. So
I always used to leave the house without jewelry. And so this is the one thing that I'm like, okay, no, I have these.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Mila or Mila, I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Wait. Dale had a question. Tools. What's the sweet spot for pliers? Like company, where you get them, price range? Sure. Like, tools is a great question. Like, what are the kind of core tools that you would think if somebody's getting started? What would be like the essentials for them to get started, and where might they find that? I mean, I would love to sell it, but we don't have that stuff right now. So where would somebody get it if they're going to like do it tomorrow?
So there are tons of places that you can get tools, and there are lots of specialty tools that cost $10. But I found the best things that work for me are little Harbor Freight cutters and pliers. They're like $3 or $4 a piece. I usually will buy myself like 3 at a time because I lose them as soon as I come home. But they're really reliable. They're super affordable. They have all kinds of different tips, just like the hobby pliers and the specialty pliers that you'll buy at like Hobby Lobby, Rio Grande, all that kind of stuff. You can get the same thing at Harbor Freight for a fraction of the cost. And I only use needle nose pliers and cutters. As far as like what you needed to pick it up tomorrow, all you need is needle nose pliers, some cutters, and some wire.
Okay, no, that's awesome. So it's really, there's not a huge barrier to get into this. You just
No.
No, that's awesome. And then Mila asked, what are one of the tools that helped you most in your wire wrapping journey? And how the heck do you get your wires so tightly wrapped? Do you have any techniques that make that easier? I think we may be showing techniques more as we go further in the video.
Yes. So how I get my wire so tight is like I mentioned in the one of the first videos, is I fold my wire over and then it's like a gentle tug. So what I'm doing is I'm letting my base wires work for me. So that weaving wire is really only to hold that pressure down on the gem from whenever I initially grab it, and then that's
Right.
it. So I'm really letting the wire do all the work for itself. All I'm doing is making sure it doesn't get cross-threaded.
Right, and you're cinching it down, and do you continue that? We're going to obviously cover in the video, but you continue to do the double figure eight as you work up that channel.
Mhm.
So, okay, no, that's good. So, I mean, that's one technique too, because maybe some people do just a single. So, all right. Tad said, how do you base your 28 gauge weaving wire? How do you base your 28 weaving wire in a loop? I don't know if I fully understand the question. You mean, and maybe you can put this in the chat, Tad. So it doesn't get all tangled up. Is that the concern you're asking about?
Oh, like from the spool?
Yeah. Well, you said you cut like 8 foot off on this particular piece.
Yeah. So what I normally do is I will set it, since I'm left-handed and everything kind of goes off to the left, I will just straighten it out as best I can, and I will just set it off to the side.
Right. So you just bring it in and you're just pulling it in then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like knitting. It's like knitting. You just have to make sure that you have enough slack to have something to work with, but not enough to where it knocks itself up.
Yeah. I gotcha. And I think, Ed, we asked the question, he asked, what kind of wire do you make that with? And I think you said in this particular piece, it's copper. The one that you're doing right now is copper. Okay. Mm-hmm. And where do you get your copper? I know people are going to ask that question, like, where's places to get copper?
Rio Grande. Rio Grande is the best place to get wire. And like if you're out of the US, there are lots of other companies. Like you might have to find a local artisan that can roll your wire out for you, or there's like monstercenter.com and a bunch of other people that do international shipping, because Rio is kind of expensive when it comes to international shipping, but they're very quick. Let's see, I don't have any of it right offhand, but I get 5-pound spools of Rio copper, the base wire that I use, and that's 900 feet of base wire.
And then so you're straightening that out. So when you're doing those, 10 to 12 inch, you just straighten that out, get them parallel, make sure they're flat, and then that's where you get started. And you do that bend. Okay. Because I'm learning this. I'm like, I want to learn how to do this stuff.
Yeah, I take that straight off the spool.
Okay. Yep. And then Dale had a question. Dead soft brass regarding Josh's least favorite wire to work with. Is that
dead soft is a-okay, but that hard, that like half hard or regular just brass is torture on your fingers.
Yeah. So if somebody did the dead soft in that, that's actually kind of works. Oh, does that work kind of like copper?
Yeah. Well, it's a little closer to sterling silver.
Okay.
That's what it would be, because copper is like the softest, and then it's like sterling, gold fill, your standard brass, and then it's like titanium, stainless steel, platinum. All those are really hard.
We should get Rio to sponsor us on these webinars as much as we pitch Rio.
Let's Joanna's tickling me. She says we need to roll some more video here, because we've got 17 more minutes of video just to get through not even the first half.
Okay, let's roll.
So we've got our stone sitting in the center. And then I'm going to start on my bottom left just because that's the closest wire to me. And whichever way you start, your weave is going to want to twist that way as well. That's why I always start on my closest wire to me, is because I can control that tension and slowly turn it as I go. So we've got our cross section, we've got our stone sitting in the center, so it's going to be just like a stone sitting in here. And we're going to start on the bottom left and go around 1.5, and then 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, and then we're going to stop back at this bottom left. And then you can add another stone. For me, I personally like a lot of movement in my channels. Like here's a sneak peek of this. I haven't shown anybody this yet. So how I get this movement here is I only have one securing weave in between each stone so that my base wires can slip around on that round wire. You can do more securing weaves in between each wire, and that'll give your channel a lot more stability, but it won't let it move as much. There's a lot less movement. So for the measurement on this one specifically for 3mm stones, what I figured out is 2 sets of this figure 8. So just 2 is all you need around all 4 wires. So I've already gone back to my bottom wire. That's where I stopped at, and I'm going to consider that as the start of my next one. So I'm just going to go back around that bottom right wire, up and around that top right, up and around the top left, and back through and around that bottom left to finish off where we started. The only pliers that I use, guys, are these here. I don't know what brand they are, honestly. I can't remember even where I got them. I got them several years ago, and they used to have little rubber grippies on them and springs, but now they don't have anything. And so, like, I don't use any cutters or anything that are not these. I don't have any round nose pliers or anything. It's all just straight needle nose with the teeth on them. But with that being said, I'm going to take my pliers, and I'm just going to gently push my weave together. I'm going to be putting pressure on the left and right wire, or sorry, the top and bottom left wires and the top and bottom right wires at the same time. So if you're working on the left side, do left, left. If you're working on the right side, do right, right. That helps keep that pressure even. And then if you do that, go ahead and flip it sideways and treat this as another left, left and right, right. Now we are ready to just start adding stones. Here's where you want to make sure everything is parallel. That's looking at it from my bottom starting point, so this is looking at it from the left side of the would-be channel. This is the top here, the right side, and the bottom. To add your stones, I like to keep everything face down on my table. It's just easier to grab, but not always possible. I'm just going to set my stone point down on my finger. Oh, absolutely. I will certainly publish this. And then you just set it down in its little seat. This is looking at it from the top, from the left, from the right, and I'm not going to turn it upside down yet because I haven't set it. And so this is the part that's going to seem like it's the hardest, but this is the easiest part of the entire thing. So you're just going to start that same figure 8 weave just around 1.5 times, just past the edge of the top of your facet. So I'm going to lightly pull it down and just go around that 1.5 times, Now here is where I'm going to start putting pressure on all 4 sides of my channel as I turn it with my index finger and my thumb. I'm pushing together, and then as I turn, I'll be pushing it that way. So that way I don't have to pull on my wire, I can just fold it into place, and it helps with breakage as well. So now we're going around back to the top right. I'm flipping the weave, so now we're going back across the top of the stone. And back down and through. And we have a stone set. Here's the top. Here's the left where I started and ended. The bottom. And the right. If you start to notice your weave turning a little bit, whichever way it is skewing, go ahead and push the opposite. So I just like to grab the 2 little contact points here. I'm using my top right and my bottom left weaving wire, and I'm just going to give it one little smush. Just to help get things back on track. And now you'll see I've got this super wide V that these stones are obviously not going to sit in. And so I'm just going to squish that together and make straight lines. Here we are. Here's the full channel so that you guys can see the size of this. Another reason why I cut so long, just so you know, is because all of the wire here, except for this coiled coil, all of the wire in this pendant comes from these channels, from this channel. All of this is going to be accent, extra, some for that coil. I just wanted to make sure that you had enough, absolutely had enough to do this design. Now that I've got my wires straightened out, everything is back parallel where I want it. Nothing is twisted. I'm going to go ahead and slide in my next stone. This is the part that's frustrating right here. You will not believe how many stones are in this brown here. This is all shag. Why would I do this to myself? There we go. And you slide it in there. Something that I do that helps me, this is not necessary, but it's just something that I do. I will bend the bottom 2 wires down and left, down and right, the top wires up and left, up and right, and display everything out, because as we go down, these wires are going to want to pull together, and this is going to help keep them from crossing and getting twisted. So I'm going to start the same way that I did this first stone. I'm going to go just underneath. Oh yeah, I sweep. We sweep around here. We don't use the V word. Vacuum. Whoop! Dropped a stone. So that is a learning moment. I felt like it was kind of loose. So you'll notice that these wires are still splayed out. My wires are still splayed out. They're not quite straight. And so we are just going to Straighten those puppies out. And go at it again. You'll have your weaving wire to contend with this time, so it might be a little more difficult to pop that stone in there. You can always unweave that coil, but I am like super stubborn. Putting pressure on all sides of the channel as I go around. I just went around the top right wire. Top left, back through. Yeah, just some good old like Dollar Tree pantyhose would be perfect. Put that over the end of the sucker hose thing. And I don't know if it's a neurotic thing or if it actually helps, but after I have to do that little squish bit that first time, putting pressure on my top right wire versus my bottom left wire and giving those a little squish, I feel like I have to do that after every one. I don't know if it actually helps, but that's just what I feel. Starting on the third one here. You're going to find what feels right to you as far as how to put these stones in, like how to pick them up and how to guide them. This is also going to help you make sure that your channel wires are parallel. Like if you think that they're straight and they're actually not, this is where you're going to find out, because they're just going to fly out. You're going to go bottom left, bottom right, top left, and then back to the bottom left. So you're making a box. You're drawing a square with your wire. I'm going up and through. That was the top right. And then back across the top. And back around the bottom. I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but I started trying to put as many stones in as possible, and with that came as little wire as possible. So I started trying to streamline things a bit where I could. Gonna go back around the bottom right. I just started that on the bottom left, so I'm bottom right. This is back around to the top right. When I first started this, I don't know if any of you rotate your weaves as well, that are just starting out. But if you find that stuff like this is really difficult, you can't get your hands to do it, maybe try rotating your weaves, like as you go around. Because I know for me, whenever I first started, like this technique. So I'm going to start with my fifth. So I'm going to do this one a little slower because I feel like I've been just flying through it. So this is that 1 and a half. Well, that's what I mean whenever I say a half. That's the half. So we've got 2 more stones to add, and then we're going to start actually making this pendant. Oh, it's just gonna fight me. That's where I said earlier how you can tell if your base wires aren't parallel, because your stone will not sit in there. Just real quick, I already have two wires bent out for this other. So on this channel, how we just splayed out the wires and went straight into weaving. For bigger channels, like for these garnets here, you start out the same way, and instead of weaving from the get, you will imagine these two smaller wires are my bottom wires here, and this is coiled together just like we started. You're going to put a 90-degree angle in that bottom wire, measure the bottom of your stone, and then give that another angle. And so now you've got something for it to sit in. And then you spread them out. And that is how you would set the larger stones. Yeah, I find that way, setting the larger stones and doing that 90-degree angle, you have to do a lot more securing before you're able to set your first stone, or else it's going to slip around a lot more on you. And later on, whenever you're either warping the weave, or if you have to work it at all, like add tie downs in between your stones, it tends to slip on the bottom part there where it's bent on those two, like where it's bent there. It'll slip there and separate, and you'll drop stones at the bottom if you're not careful. So where this is your seat for your stones, and how you'll have it splayed out like we do here, you will just coil this. You'll take your weaving wire and you'll coil those together down around into the bottom, like right about here, and then go ahead and start with your securing weaves, and that will make it super soft.
All right. So, John, where are we at on the videos? Is that through number 5? Okay,
Yeah,
through
sure.
number 5. So you can see one of the things I love about Josh's video is you have Josh, you have like this deliberate teacher skill about you. Like you're hitting it, helping people really get it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of detail in what he's doing. And that's one of the things I really like about your style of explaining is it's very methodical. So somebody, if they get lost the first time, you're going to come back and you're going to do that. You guys on the, all of you on this webinar, are you liking kind of the detail that you're getting here? Because a lot of times people just do hand waving and they really don't show you the intricacies of how to do that. Yeah. There's some great stuff. So, questions
So
here.
I got a question. I got a question that I really think I have to share. So Cornelia asked, she asked me a question. She said, I got to find it here. She sent it to me. That I quit my job. She said, you quit your job to take a chance on doing something that you believe in. And she asked me, would I do it again? I would do it 20 years earlier.
Yeah, I'd do it about 10 years earlier.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll tell you this, it's definitely hard. Don't expect that if you're going to try and do this, that it's easy. It's going to be hard. You got to be really committed. And the more committed you are, and the more you believe that you can be successful, the more successful you will be. Like I work way longer hours than I ever did when I was working semiconductor, and make less money than I did when I was running a big design team in semiconductor. Like I had 56 engineers working for me, but it was really high pressure. And everything that we make is gone and in a landfill in 5 years. And nothing memorable about that. I'd come home and I'd cut spheres, and I'd have more satisfaction in 2 hours in my shop cutting spheres than I had in a whole week of working in semiconductor. And, you know, there's a lot of things I enjoyed about my work, but if you're really like, if this is what you want to do, then you got to go for it.
Yeah.
Wait.
Follow your passion.
Yeah. I would say also find mentors. And the mentor doesn't mean there's somebody that you have to talk to. They may not know they're mentoring you, but if you're looking at everything, you're watching their videos, you're reading their books, you're like, one of my mentors' mentor is Warren Buffett. Does he go sit down with Warren Buffett? Not at all. But he is incessant on reading everything about what Warren Buffett says. And so somebody can be a mentor for you. Somebody who's dead can be a mentor for you if there's enough media out there about what they did, so that you can learn by studying them. And I think I love what you're saying, John, is that like the commitment is such a driver. And I think, you know, all of us we're only here for a certain period of time, and then we're gone, right? We're all going to die. And if we can be attuned to doing those things that gives us pleasure and joy, and, you know, be around people where you can mentor. Like, we're going to be doing more marketing stuff. Like, we're really studying a lot of marketing. We've got some really good mentors that are working with us, and we want to share that with you. For those of you who are saying, hey, I want to make business go, we're going to be really working to do that, because for us, that also gives us joy. We like doing this. I mean, this is why we do this whole thing. This is not about, let's go make lots of money. John and I could go into other industries and make a lot more money, but we wouldn't necessarily be doing the thing that we really love. And part of what we really love is helping all of you achieve your dreams. I mean, that gives us a lot of value. That's actually the big reward. It's not the money. It's like, wow, look at what this person did. Like, when you guys send us stuff and we feature you or whatever, that's what gets us jacked, because that's cool. It's like celebrating your success. So I'm going to jump to these questions. So Mima said, do you seal with something after you oxidize it? I see that it still has a nice black. How do you keep it from buffing out with wear?
So if it is not sealed, it is always going to rub off. It's always going to rub off. But the way that I do it, I just clean it twice, basically. I do the liver of sulfur to darken it, and then I neutralize it in baking soda, but then I go back and I wash it with Dawn dish soap and a plastic scrubber and some warm water, and that seems to really set it in there, because I can get a good 3 months of wear out of one of these before it will really start to turn on me.
Okay. Yeah. And then you could just redo it again. Yeah. I think we have a video that you sent that actually shows your process of doing that. So that actually may fit into here. Kristen had a question. Do you seal the pieces, and with what products do you use? I think you just answered that question. You're actually not doing a formal sealing. You're just cleaning it. So Paul Benson said, how much time does it make to make a piece like what you're wearing, or what you were wearing?
I think this one took me between 4 and 6 hours. I made it on that entire video file that I sent, and then with 9 times speed, it dropped it down to like just over an hour. Yeah.
We have that. It's like, you know, but you can really see it. We wanted to do this here because this shows you all the technique that was blur in the other one, although it's really freaking cool.
It's crazy.
Mila asks, I'm new to wire wrapping and have searched high and low for the definition of heady. What does that mean?
I think the standard definition of heavy would be lots of layering, lots of coils. The coils seem to be like the defining mark of a heady piece. It's more about the wire work, and there is a lot of stones, yes, but the pieces that I see traditionally described as heady are more heavier on the wire side than on the stone.
I see. Gotcha. Got it. Cornelia asks, it seems like you have trouble with the stone dropping out before. It seems like I would have trouble with the stone dropping out before I get it locked in. Any advice on getting past that? I actually think you covered that, which is making sure you're straight. Is that the answer to that?
Yep, you just got to be really patient with yourself. And I wasn't during that video, and I kept dropping stones, but it was actually a really good learning experience because you can see that even though it's my bread and butter, it's a technique that you have to work at.
Yeah. Ed's asked Josh, if you're weaving wire, if the weaving wire breaks while you're setting the stones, how do you handle that situation?
Super easily. So all you do is that part of extra wire, it usually will break like an inch or so away from your channel or your weave, because that's usually where it gets kinked. It's not right on the spot where you're weaving, but it's just a little bit up. And that you can just coil maybe 1 or 2 times around your bottom base wire, just to make sure that it's facing inside your pendant, so that whenever it does come loose later on with wear, tear, age, stuff like that, it never comes out to poke the people in front or to the back of the pendant. So all you do is you just get like an extra 3 inches of wire that hang out the bottom of your channel, and then you just continue on like normal, like nothing ever happened.
Okay, so you just start again and just restart at that point. I gotcha. And that's on the back side, so it's not going to be visual to the piece.
Yep. It makes it pretty much seamless. The only difference that you'll notice is that on the bottom left base wire, where I always start, where there's 2 points of contact before and after the stone, where it would be broken, there would be 5.
I see. Okay, gotcha. Dale asked, what about round beads? Do they set the same way? Do you handle beads with a center hole differently? That could be interesting.
So I don't really like to channel set beads, but actually one of my next pieces has some 6mm garnet rounds that I'm going to be using the beads. And the only difference, because you can do faceted stones, beads, cabicons, rough, raw, natural stuff. And the only difference is that whenever you're using faceted stones, they're usually a little wider than they are deep. Like the stones that I use are 3mm by 2mm. And beads, since they are usually circular or some kind of standard shape, you'll need to adjust. Instead of a rectangle for your channel, it'll be a box.
I see.
It'll be.
I gotcha.
But
and I think you were.
Okay,
good. Cornelia asked, are you going to go over how to clean up the back? I think we actually just covered that. And if not, we'll probably cover it next week.
Well, you got a lot more videos coming, so.
I know. And then JP asked, so 4 to 6 hours is your skill set today on that pendant. If you had to try it 10 years ago, how long would have it been?
Oh, wow. Even a couple of years ago, it took me at least a week for a pendant that was maybe a fifth as involved as this. So I'm going to say maybe about a month, realistically.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of wire wrappers that are still my peers now that make some really incredible stuff that take a couple of months on their pieces.
Yeah, right. And then I mean, part of what I'm hoping that as you're watching here, JP and some of the others of you watching this, that you are seeing the point with what he's showing you is to how to shorten that, because you're dropping. Here's how to avoid this. Here's how to have the stone, because that's the stuff. Would that be fair that that's the kind of stuff that would make it long, is you just don't know the technical ways of being able to do it? It's a technical
and trusting yourself.
Yeah.
You got to be able to trust the wire. Your hands are not going to want to do this whenever you first start out because it feels clunky and weird, but you just let your wire do its thing.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, we are over time. It's 8:13, and we'll have more next week. Josh, it is so awesome to have you here. We admire the heck out of what you're doing and the beauty and the aesthetics of it. It's just remarkable. Certainly in the chat. Put up Josh's link so people can follow him on Instagram, and also you do the both teaching inside Pueblo and this all online trading too. So can you get that up, Joanna? So you can take a photo of this with your camera. The QR code will do that. Follow Maxim Designs. Both on Instagram, Maxim Designs and Maxim Designs. I think you have 2 of them there. And then also,
I've got an LLC.
Josh there on his YouTube channel, and then the Facebook is on the lower right-hand side there as well. So definitely follow Josh. And then if you're interested in studying with him, Facebook is the best approach.
Yes,
That's where you would be. So if you're doing either person, and you do some also online classes as well.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. So, and we'll be able to talk to that more next week as well. And then if you like this, please go to our, put the link up for Highland Park's YouTube, the Google reviews. Give us a 5-star review. If you like this, nothing makes my heart happier than when you're like, boom, 5-star, man, that was great. I'm learning good stuff, because that motivates us. And it really engages us. I'd also say, subscribe to the YouTube channel. They just put the link in there. And then turn the screen share off, put me back on the video. I want to say the other thing going on, so you can go ahead and stop this, Joanna, that what I very much want you to take advantage of, if you haven't, is we have extended some of the availability of Black Friday items through December the 4th. Is it? What's the day? 3rd, 2nd, 3rd. So these are killer deals for Highland Park equipment. So you can go to hplapidary.com, put that in the chat, team, because we have all kinds of equipment that is available for both glass and gemstone cutting and polishing. And our Black Friday has been real. A lot of you have taken advantage of it. And tomorrow, we have, by unbelievable, overwhelming response, we're going to be doing live selling of some of John's stash. So John's a freak. My brother is a freak, and he has been stashing rock for 30 years, and we have about 150 tons.
If I see good rock, I'm going to buy it.
But he'll buy it by like tons.
They always, like, the way I like to buy it is when they tell me I got 5 tons and I can get a really good price. So I can go through and I can grade out all the best, and I can take it at a good price and then be able to sell rock at a reasonable price, and it's not like dog rock. Yeah. So tomorrow, you all, like, we were like, I've been telling Sherman, yeah, we got to really promote the rough rock, and we haven't done that because we've been so busy on the equipment. The equipment's just been crazy. This year has been even crazier than last year, and last year was crazier than the year before. But we have, like, I don't know, 100 ton of rough rock, and
150
you guys got the ones that were on the
Tad was there. Ted was there.
Just a tiny bit. And and we had so many people contacting us after that saying, you got to do more of this. And so tomorrow we're going to do it again. What time will it be?
Do you have that? You have something to put up on this, Joanna, on the thing? It's tomorrow at, is it 7 p.m.? Come on, guys. 7 to 9, and Joanna is going to be emceeing it tomorrow, and she's a little nervous. You guys got to show her a lot of love, because she's like nervous to go MC. So show her the love. She's been working crazy. When I hired Joanna, she was the most shy person I have ever interviewed in my life, and I've hired hundreds of people. And she is a total rock star on our team. So she's been getting more and more good on her speaking, without, first time I talked to her, I'm like, I don't quite know what she's saying, because it's like Tagalog and English combined, Filipino. And her English has gotten great, and she's a killer designer. So she's going to be emceeing the opening tomorrow. So come and support, even if you're not going to buy rock. Come support Joanna, because she is awesome. She got that great smile. I don't know how many years she had braces, but she's all good to go. So that's tomorrow, 7 p.m. We'll go be from 7 to about 9 o'clock. We have a lot of lots. I'll be working and doing the rock stuff all day tomorrow. So that's going to be really fun. So, and y'all had asked for it. Like, we have gotten so many emails, it's ridiculous. So that's happening. And then Josh, we will also be with you next Thursday. So super excited about it. So grateful for you to spend the time and really invest this. I mean, this is really a commitment to the art, and you really are pushing the boundaries of new possibilities.
Really great that you are willing to share your knowledge.
Oh, it's a privilege. Thank you for having me. Thank you. And like, it's honestly been a goal of mine since I started to make sure that other people had a resource to go to so that I didn't have to, or so that they didn't have to fight like I did.
Right. Yeah. You can take years out of people's learning experience by being able to really mentor them. And Josh is a great person to be a mentor, to follow what he's doing in his work, because it can take years off of you really learning to do this. Cornelia, you should go study with Josh. Good trip to Pueblo. So anyway, with that being said, good evening. We really appreciate you being here tonight, and we will see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. and then, of course, next week, same time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.